30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and Young Guns Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. Kind of a cloudy, overcast Monday in Nashville, Tennessee, even if I didn't spit that out very well. Looking for temperatures before the week is over into the mid and upper 70s. Can you believe it?
Never know what you're going to get.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're looking for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 37 days until opening day, but who's counting?
You are.
Yeah, you're darn right I am. Let's say hello to Coach Watson Brown, who joins us from up on the plateau. Happy 50th wedding anniversary to you.
Oh, George, thanks. Thanks to you guys for giving me the day. And Brenda and I had a blast. 50 years goes fast, telling you. A lot of things go down in 50 years. A lot of things go down in 50 years, good and bad, but she's a great lady.
I believe it. You pass on our congratulations. God knows she has a place in heaven.
She's got many spots. She can bring some people in with her, I'd say, after putting up with me for 50. And of course, I always said I got her before she knew any better. She was 19 when I married her. And we married in 6 months of dating, starting to date. So she didn't know any better. God bless her. It's just the way it goes. Hey, what you fall into, you just got to live with.
Billy, did you watch the NBA All-Star game?
I watched about 3 minutes of it. Walked into the living room. My little brothers were watching it. I said, I'll have enough. I've had enough of this already.
Good. That's 3 minutes more than I watched. Boy, they play some good defense in that game, don't they?
They're putting their heart out there.
Listen.
Hey, guys, what are we going to do? That's awful.
Oh, it is.
I was watching.
That's every bit as bad as the football thing. Every bit as bad. The only All-Star game's worth a flip's baseball. That's it. The rest of them
because it means something. You know, they
play. That yesterday looked like the football deal before they've changed that.
Did you watch it?
No, but I saw highlights. That's all. Saw highlights on ESPN is embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, they just stand there and let them just do whatever they want to do, and then they clap for them after they do it. I mean, it's the defensive guy nearly goes, "Good job, nice shot." I mean, I don't know.
If you had the over/under in that game was like 320.
I'd say that's right.
Good Lord.
What do we do? Be commissioner a minute. What do we do?
Well, the dunk contest was more entertaining.
Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, the dunk contest, Julius Erving years ago saw to it in the old ABA days that the slam dunk competition was really good. I think the first thing I would do, Watson, as commissioner is have a meeting with the players and say, look, this is our showcase and y'all are dogging it. And try to see if he could, I don't know, work through their pride a little bit to put a better show on. The thing's a joke.
I mean, how about adding another 5 dudes to it maybe and make them play a quarter and a half, and the winner gets the extra game in the championship game? Why don't they try that?
They tried that in baseball with the All-Star game, and it really didn't have much effect, just to be honest.
But I've always thought baseball, they tried.
Oh, I think I'm
just trying to get them to try hard. It's all I'm caring about.
Watson, I think they used to try a lot more in the baseball All-Star game. I think a couple of things have happened on the baseball front. The home run hitting derby has become more popular. And the second thing is baseball is able to trot out in the All-Star game a bunch of flamethrowers who throw one inning. And so every game ends up 3-1 with 28 strikeouts. And that gets old after a while.
But I would take that over what I watch in basketball and football any day of the week.
Not even close.
I mean, I don't know. Name the all-stars when the year's over in all three sports. Send them to Hawaii for a week and let them have a good time or something. I just do away with them. It's crazy to me.
Just don't make us watch it.
Just don't make us. I didn't watch it. Yeah. Did you watch? I even watched some of the XFL before I watched that.
You know,
it ain't a whole lot better.
Let me ask you this. I saw the DC game, and our buddy Greg Williams is the defensive coordinator at DC.
Oh, he put on a show.
He
put on him and said, "Is that him?"
Did all those people get in free?
I
don't know. I don't know. I think they had a requirement of being drunk before they would let them in. That's the only thing I could come up with.
Did y'all see on the graphic they had the spread instead of the records of the teams? They had, DC minus 2.5.
Yeah. They had that on the Absolutely, they did. They were talking about it during the game. The over and under, man. Everybody's losing on this one. I mean, they're talking about the spread during the games.
We were talking about it Friday. That's what I told George. I said that this is more about the betting aspect of it than anything, that people have something else to bet on.
If that moves you, then God bless you.
Good on you.
Yeah. Do you have an update?
I do, George.
I'm thrilled.
Took a little bit to get there, but Vandy wins over Auburn Saturday night by 2. Ezra Mannion with a game-winning layup with 0.8 seconds left. Liam Robbins finished with 24 points and 12 rebounds. Vanderbilt is now 15-12 overall, 8-6 in the SEC. Joe Lunardi is considering them. He makes a list of considering. Apparently, they're the number 81 team right now.
Yeah. Watson, I went to the game Saturday. I went to several games Saturday. 3.
The Plaster tour.
Oh, listen, I had a big time. Memorial Gym was, I would say 13,000 were there, and I would say 5,000 or 6,000 were Auburn.
Yeah.
Made for a really good atmosphere. And, they're getting something done.
Oh, they're playing good, and Robbins is just playing lights out. I know he's been hurt. But even when he wasn't hurt, how do you roll him in and out and not let him play? Good gracious alive. He's a good basketball player. I think he's the best center in the league right now. He is the number 1 center in the league. Didn't Cassidy just get hurt at Florida?
Castleton, yeah.
Castleton, yes. Didn't he just get hurt? So
out for the season.
Yeah, and the guys at Tennessee are playing good defense in the 5 spot, but they're not scorers. I mean, I think he's the best center in the league. The Alabama kid's a long, tall, lanky kid, plays really good defense. I don't know. I think Vanderbilt's legit right now, guys. They're hot. They're shooting well. And how about the defense on that last when Vanderbilt got the ball? I mean,
what was Auburn
you could have
doing?
got off it all. Do you not guard them any better than that? Are these coaches, George, so afraid of foul now? They just let you just drive straight down the middle of the floor. Nobody cut him off anything and lay up a left-handed layup on the center.
So, Watson, you want my dream for Liam Robbins?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot there. He's got great defensive presence. He can clearly shoot free throws. He was 17 of 20 from the foul line.
And he was 3 of 10 from the field.
Yeah. When this season is over, I would like to see him end up working with Will Perdue. I think Will Perdue could help him a ton. There are still gaps in his low post game when he puts the ball on the floor.
Slow reacting with it.
That becomes problematic. And look, this is not something that I just tossed out here today. Will and I have talked about this for weeks, that I really think Will Perdue could help him. Kid's going to get drafted in the NBA. He's got a chance. And good for him.
Oh, Vanderbilt, I think they got a chance to win out. If they can beat Kentucky, I think they got a chance to win out here, which now you are putting yourself in a spot to get in.
Oh, it's about to get really interesting. At LSU, home against Florida, at Kentucky, home against Mississippi State. We'll see how it plays.
At Kentucky is the one. They can win those other three for sure. They'll be favored in the other three.
Right.
So
well, it's going to be interesting down the stretch here. I feel like they got to win out probably to be confident in anything. But then you also got the SEC tournament. So they got a chance there to win games. So we'll see there. Tennessee, Georgia also lost to Kentucky. I know we mentioned that. Vescovy had 17. Meshack is starting to play well for Tennessee. He had 16, but they were 4 of 14 from the free throw line. They were 0 for 6 in the second half. George, when they can't shoot, anybody can beat them, it feels like.
I can't figure out either one of these teams. First of all, with Tennessee, there are clearly half-court issues. When they get in the half court, they've got issues. Kentucky, if you can figure them out, God bless you, because I can't. You never know. Are you going to get the good Kentucky that turns it on, or are you going to get a level of Kentucky that looks disinterested? You never know.
But the one thing you'd say about both teams, they do not have great shooters.
No.
They're not scoring teams. They really struggle to score. They play good defense, both of them. Both of them can rebound. Both of them have got athletes, but they just don't have scorers. I don't know. I'm really disappointed in Tennessee here lately. I don't see them going very far because they're going to go into one of those tournament games and shoot 28% and get beat and go home. That's what's going to happen.
Got a lot to figure out in the last 3 weeks.
Meanwhile, Kentucky, they're in Lenardi's last 4 in, so they need to keep winning. Every game is big from here on out. George, the AP Top 25, number 1 Houston. They're back to number 1 for the 3rd time this season. Alabama is at number 2. They only dropped 1 spot after the Tennessee loss. Then Kansas at 3, UCLA at 4, Purdue at 5, Tennessee all the way back to 11.
This is the most jumbled up field I've ever seen. None of that group at the top you feel like you trust.
No.
You know, who's going to make the long run? It would not shock me this year if something like a 6 or a 7 seed won it all, because I'm not convinced the ones are really ones. They're just ones in a bad field.
Yeah,
I agree. 100% agree with you.
There's no elite team this year.
It's crazy.
Could be that. But what seed was Butler when they won it that year? A 9, 8, or
Butler never won it. They got
UConn. It was UConn. UConn was a 9, I think.
Something
they were
like that.
Yeah. George, NBA news. Russell Westbrook is reportedly headed to the Clippers. He will agree to a buyout with the Utah Jazz for the $47 million remaining on his deal. He intends to sign with LA after he clears waivers. What is that? His 5th team this season?
It means that he'll be shooting
and spending some of that money.
Yeah.
$47 million.
That's a lot.
That's a decent little buyout there. Last piece here, George. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500. That's how you know. I think it was a slow news day after the weekend, but longest Daytona 500 in history, 212 laps over 3.5 hours, and he broke a 166 race winless streak. And Brad Daugherty becomes the first black co-owner to win the Daytona 500.
Brad Daugherty, of course, had a great career at North Carolina, went on to a very, very good NBA career, and now he's gotten into this. Good for him.
I heard he had some trash talk with Michael Jordan on that.
Was Jordan involved in the race at all?
He co-owns another.
Does he really? I didn't know that.
He co-owns another team. Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm learning about NASCAR every day too.
Absolutely, we both are. So is stat of the day still about NASCAR?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we'll get that one.
Oh, we will kill it. The answer is Mario Andretti.
Dale Earnhardt.
Richard Allison.
I'm looking down. I like it. I'm looking down below, Watson, and I see Mike Organ from the Tennessean already in the on-deck circle. Don't know how much you've paid attention to this, but Mike has started a series of best ofs, and today he released his best high school football players of the 70s decade in the Nashville, Middle Tennessee area. We will talk to Mike about this list and God knows what else when we come back, so you stick around.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
We are excited to announce that the Music City Saints baseball program will host a spring golf scramble for their Baseball with Bud scholarship program. This program is in memory of a program supporter who passed away last summer. The scholarship program ensures every kid with the ability and drive for the game of baseball gets caught up due to the cost of competitive summer baseball. Tee-off is at 8 a.m. on Saturday, March the 18th at Ted Rhodes Golf Course in Nashville. The scramble will include 18 holes of golf with a cart provided and unlimited food and drink. Registration for each four-person team is $400. That includes drinks during the event. They will also be providing lunch for each team. They're limited to 25 teams, so sign up soon. If you can't field a full team, individual registration works also. Finally, if you're unable to take part in the golf scramble on Saturday, March the 18th, but you'd like to support the Music City Saints, you can help their program with a one-time donation. If you have or know of any businesses that would like to become sponsors of Music City Saints baseball, feel free to contact Chan with any questions or to register. The phone number is area code 270-300-4155, or you can go to musiccitybaseball24@gmail.com. Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
You know, Watson, I was thinking during the commercial break when you saw the advertisement for Strike and Spare that I think most of those pictures were taken by Mike Organ.
Taken by Mike.
He didn't know this was going to happen. He's the official photographer of the event.
I never get to bowl, but that's good because I never have to bowl either. That's the good thing about it. Let me get centered up here.
You've been
How you guys doing
at that event? We're good. We're good. Are the shades new?
You mentioned, George, that I've been doing a big project, the biggest project I've done in my career, actually, and it's I'm doing the all decades teams. And I already did the 60s, which one of the three of us was on. And it wasn't me. But what I failed to mention, and the 70s was released today. What I failed to mention to Watson, who was the quarterback on the 60s team, is we're going to have a round robin tournament after this is all said and done. And the 60s will play the 2000s, the 70s will play the 80s, the 90s gets a bye, and then so on. So be prepared. Find that suspension helmet you once told me you wore in a Tennessee game and got hit so hard you don't remember anything about the fourth quarter.
I got hit returning a punt. It about got my coach fired. Your quarterback is returning punts? Oh, Lord have mercy. I will not play in a 60s against thousands. That ain't happening, buddy. That
I guess
an absolute kill.
So I guess we'll just snap the ball directly to Mac and Jeff Peebles and the other running backs that'll be back. Well, sorry, Jeff Peebles is passed, but George Seavely and some of the others, we'll just snap the ball straight back to them. No, if you're not going to play.
I will be the manager for the team. I will let somebody else get out there and get embarrassed.
So, Mike, whose idea was this?
It was I did in 2018, I did the 50 greatest players, high school players ever from Nashville. And that thing grew to where I had to do the next 50. So I basically named the 100 greatest high school football players from Nashville. At the same time, Ronnie Bargatze put together the top 25 basketball teams. So those two things went over real well. And we've been wanting to build off of them. And this year we finally had an opportunity. Tom Krieger, our high school sports editor, came up with the idea. Let's go back and look at the 60s, then the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s through 2010, because we've already done the 2010 to 2020 team. And he said, let's not just limit this to Nashville. Let's do all of Middle Tennessee, which is the mid-state area, basically. So it's all the teams in Nashville and everything outside of Nashville. That's why Watson and Mack are included. That's why Dennis Harrison is included on the team today, along with an EJ Jr. Who played at Maplewood. So it's all the teams are included are going west to Henry County, going north to the Kentucky border, going east to Crossville, and then going south to the Alabama border in some cases with Lincoln County and some of those teams. So it's a lot of teams. And to be on this team, you had to be a player. You absolutely had to be a player.
Are you not amazed at the level of talk it creates?
Yeah, I'm still amazed by it. And we didn't start with the 50s because we didn't think we would generate that much talk. That was our whole intent, was to get a lot of page views and a lot of try to drive some subscriptions and to get a lot of chatter going. And we were afraid with the 50s, so many of those guys are gone now. And we just didn't think there would be enough people that would remember it. But the 60s, there absolutely were still a lot of people, and it drove a lot of chatter. And this team today, judging already from social media, which I've been keeping an eye on since this launched at about 5 o'clock this morning, has really taken off. And what I'm hoping it is create some debate. Hadn't seen that so far. I like debate. I like saying when guys come on and go, how did you leave off so-and-so? Or, what are you talking about this guy? He was a bum. But we hadn't had a lot of that yet. I look forward to that kind of talk.
In the one you just put out this morning.
Yes.
What's the one you personally debated the hardest?
Let me look at it. I've got it called up here on my phone because I'm afraid if I called it up on the camera, I'll lose you guys because I'm inept technology wise.
You're saying that to me?
I know. Good brother. I will say that I'll start with the slam dunk. A lot like the 60s team. And I told Watson this, he was the slam dunk quarterback. There wasn't even a lot of these, there's an A and a B or a close number two. There wasn't even a number two in this case. I think you had to drop down to number 5 after Watson. And it was the same case. Well, it wasn't quite the same case. Let me take that back with the 70s, because Mike Wright was a slam dunk at quarterback, but as Watson will attest to, Fred Fisher was an awfully close second. And I went back and did a lot of research for this, a lot of research, more than I've ever done. And Tommy Squires named a 1970s All-Decade team. Now, his was only NIL, but he faced the same dilemma. And he talked in his story about choosing between Mike Wright and Fred Fisher. And he gave Mike the edge simply because Mike won a state championship with Boots Donnelly as the coach. That was the only edge he gave him. I think Fred had better statistics. Fred had great teams, just like Mike did. But and both guys were just absolutely the best player on their team. But simply because Mike had the state championship and Fred didn't, that's why he gave the edge to Mike. But those were two really good ones, but I didn't have to debate over them too much because Tommy kind of answered that question for me. I'm looking through here as another one that I would have had to debate. That might have been the toughest one. I tell you one of them, this is a really funny story here. Jay Williams from Lipscomb is an offensive lineman
right
on the team. Big guy, 6'6", 260, I think. He was the first. Now, Lipscomb's football team was only 8 years old at the time. This was its 8th season. Jay became the first athlete in any sport to earn a SEC scholarship, and he earned a scholarship to Tennessee. F.M. Williams, our beat writer for Tennessee at the time, for the Vols at the time, longtime sports writer, obviously, legendary guy, wrote that Jay Williams was the first and possibly would be the last Lipscomb football player to earn an SEC scholarship.
Little did he know.
Little did he know that Trent Dilfer would come into the picture several decades later. But I researched Jay a lot, and Jay was a really good player. And considering the competition he was playing, he must have just absolutely dominated back then in single A football. I did not. The only thing with David Culley that I really debated was to where to put him. Quarterback, again, with Mike at quarterback, it was kind of hard, and with Fred right there. But David was a good all-around athlete and a good defensive player. 9 interceptions, I think, his senior season. So he fit really well at the athlete position on offense. And I was really glad to get him on there. I spent the day with Mike Wright last week doing a video that's included in this. And he was excited to get the video done so he could call David Culley, who he had been with last week, be 2 weeks ago now. David was here spending the week with at Vanderbilt and kind of helping that coaching staff, with whatever advice he could offer. So Mike had spent some time with him that week, and he couldn't wait to get our video done so he could call David and tell him he was on this team. So that made me feel good that David was, and then David in turn told Mike that he was excited to be on the team. So that made me feel good that a guy as accomplished as David Culley was proud to be on the team.
I'll start some controversy. You left my boy Rob Fessmeyer out of this.
Okay, we did leave Rob Fessmeyer out of it, but he was definitely considered. The problem was we had some some Murfreesboro Central guys that we had to get on because they were they won a state championship in 1970. They barely made it under the wire. And some of these had played on the earlier teams, but we didn't. We made a rule that we couldn't put them on until the 70s, until the decade they finish.
Right.
So that's why we had some guys from Central make the defensive team that kept some of the guys off.
So I'll ask this last thing and then turn it over to Watson. When you do one of these, how many hours do you spend on, let's say, decade of the 70s? I know it's a bunch.
Yeah, it's weird. I still have my regular job to do, cover college basketball and help out with Titans and Predators and all that. I still do that. What I try to do is I start the day off working on these teams and find a stopping point and then do my other job part of my job. And then I get back to it around a little after dinner. I'll get back to it, and I'll usually work on it till 1 or 2. And in some cases, I worked on it until 3 o'clock in the morning, because you can't find a stopping point, because you get on a person, say a Fessmeyer or a David Alsop from Murfreesboro Central, who went on to be the state championship coach at Oakland. And you can't stop halfway through, because you can't pick it back up. You forget where you were, and you're taking all these notes. So you have to find a stopping point, and it's almost impossible, because while checking on David Alsop, you come across Dennis Harrison, and because you're looking at luckily I have access to every Memphis Commercial Appeal, Murfreesboro Daily News Journal, Clarksville Leaf Chronicle, Columbia newspaper, Tennessean, of course, and the Nashville Banner ever printed. So I have a lot of information at my disposal, but at the same time, that's a lot of stuff to go through. So you try to find a place to stop, then you get on another person that you're tracking down. So it's I spend a lot of hours on it, sometimes 12, 15 hours a day.
Oh, I believe it. Watson, what a task he's trying to do here.
Oh, it's and a fantastic task. I just think it'll go down in history that what Mike's doing, it'll be where people can go back and look at these for a long time coming.
Absolutely.
When he called me about this, I don't remember, Mike, what, a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. I said, this is a fantastic idea. And quickly, Mike, go through how you did the criteria for this. You went through it with me a little bit when you called me.
Yeah.
And, go through the criteria on what weeded some out and what bumped some up, and just quickly. I know that you could talk about it forever, but just go through that a little bit.
Yeah, you have to have a starting point. So after looking at all the teams, I realized there are not a lot of All-Americans. So if you made an All-American team, you were going to be on this team. Be it Parade All-American, Street and Smith, Scholastic Magazine. There were a few All-American teams out that have been out through the years. And, of course, Parade's still around. And so if you made All-American, you got on the list. If you made AP or UPI All-State, both teams, then you got on the list. Now it started weeding down a little bit. I started weeding it out a little bit, where if you only made AP and not UPI, those were points for you, but that, you weren't a slam dunk. If you made UPI and not AP, same case. Then my next criteria was I went through the 50 greatest high school football players of all time, and that was a strong consideration, but not slam dunk, because the mid-state was left out. We didn't include you guys outside of Nashville. Then we looked at the Tennessean and Nashville Banner all mid-state teams, and that was we took that into heavy consideration. And then we looked at the Lawrenceburg Quarterback Club, which would name a player of the year from Middle, East, and West Tennessee each year. So we would look at who they named for Middle. Then they would name an overall player. So if you made the overall player, then that was big and a big get for you. And then kind of from that point on, the Orlando Sentinel always named an all-Southern team, and we always had several players make that team. And so that was in consideration. Then after that, it was just going through. If we had somebody tied, we'd go through and look at who they played. I mean, I went all the way down to looking at, individual game performances. I mean, Terry Potter got on this team probably as a running back because of some of his individual games, rushing for almost 400 yards in a game, rushing for 105 yards on 5 carries in a bowl game. So, that's where the judgment call came in, and you had to just come and finally make a decision between who was going to get on and who wasn't going to get on.
Yeah, but how far in advance are you working on these things, Mike? Gracious.
I've gotten
already done 2 in a month here. So, I mean, how far in advance are you?
I've got the 80s team picked, actually. And
wow.
The other thing I have to do is I have to find a hook for each team. The hook for the 70s team was that a lot of those guys went on to play in the NFL, a whole lot of them. And if not in the NFL, professionally in the CFL, but a lot of them went on to play in the NFL. So that was kind of the hook for that team. the hook for the next team is going to be, this is when Vanderbilt and Tennessee quit dominating the local area because some other teams started to creep in on them. And you'll remember this with your time at Vanderbilt, you had to start going up against some Alabamas and Georgias and Ole Misses and Kentucky's that started to come in. And it seems like in the 70s, that's when that really took off. It's late 70s and the early 80s, it really took off. And Antonio London, probably the best player of the decade, gets snatched up by Alabama. Of course, that happened in the 70s with E.J. Jr. too. So looking for that hook is another part of it. But I've got the 80s team picked, and now I need to do the sidebar that goes with this, and then the video. I'm getting some of the guys on the 80s team together to talk about how they were recruited by teams other than Tennessee and Vanderbilt. And how, did that surprise them, and how much of a temptation was that for them? And some of them did go, Ken Austin, who will probably be the quarterback on that team, ended up at Ole Miss. He was a national prospect.
I worked him hard. I worked him hard.
And you remember Jimmy Hockaday, his receiver.
Absolutely.
And
went to Georgia.
Both of them got away. So, that was kind of the thread that ran through the 80s. But I do have the 80s team picked, and that's the biggest challenge. So, and the other good thing is we give this a couple of weeks to marinate because, as George said, there's a lot of talk, and we like to keep that talk going as long as possible. So people have been talking about your team, the 60s, up through this past weekend, and then we dropped the 70s team today. So I've got 2 weeks before we drop the 80s team, and I'll start on the 90s team at some point this week.
Wow. And last thing, George, I don't know how much time we got, but
take
Mike,
whatever
where
you
are you
want.
going with the other sports? Are you going basketball and women's basketball, or where are you taking this to?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what we said at the beginning. We said, if this thing takes off and gets the kind of traction that we hope it does, then probably what we're going to do is we're going to do the football all the way through 2010. Then we're going to do, we've talked about going back and naming the greatest quarterbacks of all time, or going back to the 60s, the greatest running backs, the greatest, and that's where, you'll be compared to a Mike Wright or Kent Austin. And we'll base it on this team, obviously, like we based part of this team on the greatest 50 players of all time in the all-decade 70s team that Tom Squires did. But we'll go back and we'll name, maybe the top 5 position by position. Then we'll be done with football, and we will move into basketball is the preliminary plan. Probably looking at a 15-member team, maybe 18-member team for each decade. And again, it'll be that same area, the Middle Tennessee area, and we'd start with the 60s and go through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. And it would be boys and girls, both, obviously. And then we've talked about baseball and doing the same thing with baseball. So if we get through baseball, then I think we'll have to take a deep breath and see where we are. But that's kind of the preliminary plan.
I love that.
It's
If we get through baseball.
So Watson probably, let me just go ahead and give you the scoop. Watson probably will be on the quarterback's team. Brenda will probably be on the girls' basketball team, and then we'll bring Watson back for the baseball team. So we're not done with Watson by any stretch.
Mike,
you,
I just think
you might want to call me back.
Well, listen, I think I should be the PA announcer of the 70s.
70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s.
Well, we got to have somebody for that round robin tournament, so you'd be good for that. But you can only do it if you can talk Watson into playing.
Okay, Mike, give me seriously before you end this. In the 70s, look at that list and give me the 5 biggest slam dunks, beginning with E.J. Jr.
Yeah, well, and E.J. counts, right? So yes, yeah. E.J. Jr. It was. Matter of fact, I did the sidebar on EJ, and the headline is why EJ Jr. may be the greatest football player to ever come out of Nashville. George, you remember, I remember when EJ came out, and it was a long time ago, and we still are talking about him being the greatest football player to ever come out. That's not the case with basketball. Charlie Davis came out of McGavock, and he, for a long time, was considered the greatest basketball player to come out of Nashville. But we've had several come out since then that would be an argument. But I'd say that he was a slam dunk. Mike Wright was a slam dunk. Preston Brown, another Maplewood player, who
could fly.
Yeah, and EJ even told me, he said, Mike, he said, I know you're talking about me being maybe the best player to ever come out. He said, I would vote for Preston Brown. He said he was such a smooth, just football player. He said the guy was incredible. And so that would be 3 right there. Let's see. Who I'd put on there? I'd put Reggie Harper on there. I thought Reggie was one of the best athletes to ever come out of the area. I know he didn't play AAA ball, but my goodness, he was a great football player and so versatile. And so that would be 4. Keep going through here.
Drum roll, please.
Let's see. Sure wish I could put Ronald Hill on there. I loved Ronald. He was a good guy and a big guy. Oh, let's see.
This is where it gets hard.
It does get hard.
This is exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly, because I'm looking at Kenny Jones here from Stratford, an incredible athlete, a defensive tackle out of Stratford. And then I come across Tim Bryant, who Vanderbilt may have caused the biggest battle in a recruiting battle between Tennessee and Vanderbilt in history. I mean, the things those two schools went to, up against each other to land him. So those were 2. Barry Burton, on the team as the punter. I love that. Jimmy Gaylor as the kicker. Richard Locke, whose son Eric would go on to be a great player. I think I'm going to go with my last one as Lonnie Sadler. I knew Lonnie was going to be on the team one way or the other, and I was glad I was able to get him on as an athlete on defense to free up a spot at running back, because while I vaguely remember watching Lonnie play, I was very young when he played at Madison. I do remember people saying he was as good on defense as he was on offense, just a really good football player. Same goes true for a player that will be strongly considered in the 80s, Joe Campbell. So I'd say Lonnie Sadler.
Mike, this is great stuff. First of all, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm going to ask you to do it again in a few weeks when you release the 80s. Congratulations. This is incredible work on your end.
I appreciate it. And another thing about Lonnie Sadler, Wednesday morning, there will be a street named in Madison named after Lonnie Sadler. So that's a cool thing. We will go do a video on that, and then we'll go back and add that to this package. So the timing wasn't quite right, but we are going to do that. But I appreciate you having me on, George.
Absolutely. And remember, PA announcers count.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
See you.
See you guys.
Take care, Mike. Great stuff. I love what he's doing.
If we make it through baseball.
Absolutely. After the break, studs and duds. It was a big weekend. We'll explain it when we come back. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East. And their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. It was a big weekend in the studs and duds world, as you'll see in a moment. Not very scientific, but just my opinion.
We start with the Doors on Saturday night.
Watson, biggest crowd I've seen at Memorial Gym since Kevin Stallings was the coach, and it was kind of nice to see.
Yeah, it was real nice, and it looked that way on television too, George. It was the gym was loud. There were a lot of Auburn people because when they do something good, there was a lot of Auburn people there. But it was nice to see that back again.
The second and third decks on the sideline, not on the end zone, not in the end zone. Second and third decks on both sides were at least 90% Auburn.
Yeah, you could hear it.
Yeah.
It sounded kind of 50-50 to me, but toward the end, I thought the Vanderbilt side really got loud when they do things.
I turned to a friend of mine who's an Auburn fan. I said, "Since when have you all become a basketball school?" And he said, "Since we've sucked in football." Well, that was a good answer. Okay,
Next
number
one,
2.
Northwestern and Chris Collins keep rolling.
You know, this is becoming one of the real national stories. In the last week at home, they have beaten, at the time, number 1 ranked Purdue. Then they ripped into Indiana, and now they've taken down, in pretty dominating fashion, a good Iowa team. Man, I am impressed.
Oh, they're fun to watch too.
Yeah.
They're fun to watch. They play really hard and got some athletes. I mean, they're pretty good.
Northwestern and Vandy, first 2 studs. I don't think we've had that on our first 2 studs
in basketball in a long while.
It hadn't happened in
Northwestern maybe forever.
No, no.
Vandy in a long time. Northwestern maybe forever, guys. I don't know if we've ever had Northwestern on as a basketball team.
No,
So-
I don't think we've had NC State either.
No, and first of all, make no mistake, the NC State people hate Carolina.
Oh,
They think the Carolina people, look
Hootie
down
snooty.
their hootie snooty, wine and cheese, look down their nose, act like NC State's a cow college.
They are.
a little bit of that Mississippi State Ole Miss stuff.
Yeah,
I've been
it's
in
got
one
a
of
little
those
bit of that.
before too.
Why don't we let Billy give out his phone number so all those NC State people can call you?
But the bigger story might be North Carolina here. They may not make the tournament.
They might not.
They were the preseason number 1 team in the country.
They looked like they were going to win this game, and then NC State went like 9 for 9 in about a 5-minute stretch from the field.
Yeah, they had a kid.
NC State's guards are really good.
Yeah, Joyner had
really
29.
good. They can shoot. They're athletic. They can dribble. They steal. They make steals. I mean, I was impressed. I can't figure Carolina out. I've watched them a bunch, and I can't figure them out.
Just put them in the same blender as Kentucky.
I can't. Yeah, but they've got the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the shooters. But they just not win. They have not won on the road against a good opponent all year long, a ranked opponent. Not one game. Can you ever imagine that in North Carolina?
No.
No.
This fourth one, by the way, is part of my little tour. that I took
We're going local
on Saturday. I went to the Preds game once the Tennessee-Kentucky thing turned out the way it did at halftime. Got to the Predator game about 10 minutes late. Then went over to TSU and watched them rip up SIU Edwardsville, which at one point was Joe Lenardi's OVC designated team to get in. Junior Clay is a transfer from Tennessee Tech. He has been all OVC 4 years in a row, about to be 5 years in a row in the COVID era. And Watson, he was on fire.
Oh, he's playing lights out. And the other Tech had two, George. I mean, there's one starting for Belmont that they say is a really good.
Right. Davidson.
I mean, good gracious, that's tough to lose, those two guys now. How about having them back for another year? I don't know why they left, but man, two good players.
He was
just been unbelievable all year long.
He was
here at Tech. I mean, he's been a well thought of kid for a long time.
Really good player at Macaulay too. I mean, he's been in the state his whole career.
Yep.
Ready for the duds?
Let's go duds.
Starting with the Vols.
I can't figure them out. And right now, I don't think they can figure themselves out. I've got to think that the no-show here, they were down 39-19 at the half. On their way back to Knoxville, and I'm guessing they bust up there.
Yeah, they would.
I got a feeling that was a really quiet bus. And I got a feeling Rick Barnes is really soul-searching on this team because I don't think he's got the answers.
I don't know if there are any answers. When you just can't put it in the bucket, and I'm not a basketball enough to know, George, are they not getting them shots? I see a lot of open shots missed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's that they're not getting shots. I hear that from basketball coaches. Well, we got to get them better shots, or we got, I don't know. I just see them standing there shooting shots that everybody else are shooting, and they don't make them.
They've got a couple of injuries which are hurting them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this doesn't feel like the same team that dominated in early January.
There's no excuses for them getting swept by this Kentucky team this year.
No,
I know it's a bad
doesn't look
matchup,
good.
but that's not good. George, let's move on to LSU.
Did you skip one?
Did I?
You might have.
Who's the next one?
Belmont.
Oh, Belmont. I think I did skip Belmont.
Yes. Belmont got drilled again by Drake, and again, no three-point field goal shooting. They were like 1 of 14. I may have the number wrong, but they've been 1 for double digits in both of these games against Drake. Drake's really good. They're probably the best team in the Missouri Valley, but I was disappointed. Belmont really was not very competitive yesterday, and you don't see that very often.
I watched quite a bit of that one. You're right. They weren't. They
thought.
didn't look on the level of Drake yesterday. They didn't look on the level of Drake yesterday to me. I mean, Drake kind of manhandled them, to be very honest. I don't know. They were doing so well, and now they've kind of hit a tough spell. But they're also running into the better teams, too. That's got a little bit to do with this. But they beat Bradley, right? They'd beaten Bradley. Did they beat them at Bradley? Didn't they?
I think you're right. Here's what don't be surprised if these teams end up playing again in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. And I've got a feeling, knowing Casey Alexander, that if they play a third time, Drake better look out.
Yeah,
because
I agree with that.
They hit a few threes. This is a much different storyline. Let's go to the third one. LSU, pathetic. South Carolina, dreadful. And yet one going away in Baton Rouge. Really? That's awful.
It's been bad, but it's almost like it's gotten a little too bad for LSU.
Yeah. What are they? 1 in like 13 in the SEC?
Yeah, they've lost 14 in a row.
God. And then this one. Okay. Look at that margin of victory. So Alabama at home has beaten Vandy by 57 and now beaten Georgia by 49.
That hasn't happened in a long time in the SEC.
Wow. Do I think Georgia's going to win 5 in a row? No, I don't. Did I think Vandy was going to win 5 in a row?
No.
Although maybe losing by over 40 to Alabama is what teams need nowadays.
God, I don't know. But those
I wouldn't want to try that one out. I'll tell you that as a coach. Yeah. Don't put that on me.
That would be your method.
You get better, coach. Take one in the jaw by 57.
Yeah. Yeah, Georgia plus 48.
Hey, good call.
Yeah. Don't know how else to say it. You didn't win.
The overhit.
Well, that's good. That's good. Okay. When we come back, we're going to go stat of the day. I fear the worst in this one, if it's what I think it is. And then Butch Spyridon, the outgoing man running the Convention and Visitors Bureau. He's retiring at the end of June. I will make the claim that nobody has done more for this city over the last 30 years than Butch Spyridon. We'll talk to him about retirement, but we'll also get into the latest on the Dome Stadium. Have you noticed it's gotten really quiet? Stay tuned.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
The Nashville Predators are having another of their College Night Series evenings. This one, February the 21st against the Vancouver Canucks. And guess which team it is? Yes, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alumni, students, and fans are invited to celebrate. College Night Series ticket packages include a Predator game ticket and a limited edition co-branded hat. Tickets can be purchased at NashvillePredators.com/college nights. Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general. Baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised. And, of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show. Final segment of the first hour here on a Monday. Stat of the day brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards. You can find them in Shelbyville in 204 East Depot Street. They're open Tuesday through Friday from noon to 5. Also Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. You can give them a call at 931-492-4304. Again, that's 931-492-4304. George, we're going NASCAR.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is the first NASCAR question
I don't think that's a good thing.
we've had. Who knows? Maybe something pops up in the old brain. Yesterday, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the 2023 Daytona 500 for JTG Doherty Racing, a single car operated team. That means that's their only team out there. Other teams have several cars. When was the last time a single car operated team won the Daytona 500?
Lord. Let's see you pull this one out of whatever, George.
Name a racer, any racer.
Dale Earnhardt. I haven't got a clue.
I have
Let
no
me
clue.
also say this, okay? I'm probably less up on what goes on in NASCAR than any sport. I've just never really, I've never really had the love. Never had the bug.
Never had the NASCAR bug? Watson, what about you? Nothing?
I can't get you could throw any name out there, but I mean Jeff Gordon.
Okay.
They're not single car people, but and I got into it a little bit. I learned a lot more about NASCAR being in Alabama those 12, 13 years. So I did because NASCAR's big in that state.
Oh yeah. All right,
and
we
the
ready
Allison brothers were there in town with us from Hueytown, and so there was a lot that I was around, but I don't know. Just throw us the answer because we don't know.
Here's the answer: Trevor Bayne for Wood Brothers Racing.
That was right on the tip of my tongue. I said to myself, I think it's Trevor Bayne. That's what I said to myself. By the way, you now have marching orders. You have Butch's number. You need to call him.
Okay.
That's how we're doing this.
Okay, awesome.
He is en route to somewhere driving. So I'll sort of stall around for a minute. Butch Spyridon has led for more than 30 years our Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I think he's done a brilliant job. And I'm not saying this just to blow smoke under his tires. I truly believe that. I think he has done more for the city of Nashville than any one individual that's out there, including mayors. And that's hard to do. But man, you talk about an incredibly hardworking person. He's on the phone with us. Butch, you owe me $1 for the intro because it was pretty good.
Hello.
Hello there, Butch.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good.
You sound like you're in Uganda.
Well, I'm in my car.
Okay. Well, that's close enough. I like that. So, first of all, before we get into some of what we're going to get into, tell people about your decision to retire. I had always assumed you would work until you were 90, but such is not the case. Tell people what the plan is.
Well, dog year wise, I think I am 90. It feels like it. So you weren't far off. Plan is to work through June 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year, and then partly ride off into the sunset, but also I'm going to stick around and consult with the organization on big stuff like big events. It could be WrestleMania. I hope it's the Super Bowl. Try to help work on international air service. But things that don't take the day-to-day grind, but have a little more reward at the end of the day.
Butch, what are a couple, maybe three things that you're proudest of as you go out in a few months?
Well, number one would be no matter what station you go to work, you remember to call me. So I appreciate that.
That was a great answer.
Yeah. Obviously the Music City Center stands out. The Titans, the whole Oiler move, something I was fortunate to be pretty involved in. And then maybe for me, the brand, taking Music City USA, and we didn't come up with that, obviously, but we fine-tuned it and broadened the definition of music in Music City. And it worked better than we ever would have hoped.
Butch, when you look back on going after this job back, I don't know, it's been more than 30 years ago. Did you ever dream you would be as involved in sports as it's turned out you are?
No, not even remotely. Obviously, I'm a sports fan. I love it. But no, I thought this was a 5 or 6 year stopover, and I'd moved to a real city. But we got to grow together, and the sports is such a big part of that. You start to talk about NFL and NHL, and now MLS, and then the draft, and even uttering the word Super Bowl, it makes my head spin. But we deserve it.
Butch, go back when this was all being rumored. I can remember going on the air. I was at WTN at the time, and I said, hell will freeze over before we get an NFL team, and I couldn't have been more wrong. You were in the middle of all of it. What kind of stands out for you?
Hell, that we got it done. I know as we talk about a $2 billion stadium, we did all of that relocation fee, practice facility, and Nissan Stadium for $300 million. It was done on the cheap, and obviously we're paying for some of that right now. But how quickly, how smoothly, even with the critics driving it to a public vote, almost 60% of the vote. That is huge, and a great validation for the NFL in Nashville.
May 7th, 1996, if anybody is wondering timeline where he's going with that. So, Butch, let's go Preds for a second. Give me some thoughts on when they came.
Obviously we were all working on hockey when the NFL reared its head, but I think they were equally important. The Preds took us to an audience that we've never talked to before. You talk about Canadian hockey fans and international audience, and just the fact hockey in the South. We did it well, and we proved them wrong. But I always have great respect and admiration for Jack Diller way back putting that team together, and certainly what Sean has done since then. But, that was probably a less likely opportunity, and the NFL was completely out of our reach. Think about that.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I remember on the air at the time, and we really were the only sports talk show at the time. So by default, people were listening. And I remember thinking, none of this is going to happen. This is nuts.
No, it made no sense. But good town, good people, and a can-do attitude that really doesn't exist in many cities.
No, you're exactly right about that. What's the secret sauce to the can-do here? Because you're right, and I saw it in the 90s as we were trying to get these things, that there was, instead of my negativity, there was a lot more, look, we can do this. Where'd that come from?
I think it's part of Nashville's DNA. We like each other. We collaborate well. And somehow we were taught, let Nashville win first, and then we can fight over the pieces of the spoil. And that has worked. It's harder today than it was then, but we should never lose that.
We'll get to stadium updates on this potential dome stadium in a moment. Watson, what do you got for Butch?
Well, first, Butch, just congratulations on a great career. And I know you're going to really enjoy what you're fixing to do. It's a little bit of what I did. You retire, but yet you stay busy. You keep your nose in what you've done all your life. And you're going to do that and be a big help. And thank you. I mean, what all that you've been a part of as watching this city. I was back in the city playing football and baseball at Vanderbilt in the 60s. And to see Nashville then, I went to Birmingham, Butch, and was there for 12 years when we started football at UAB in Birmingham. And Nashville and Birmingham to me Birmingham now and Nashville then are very similar, but Nashville took off. It just took off, and it's been a lot of the things you've had your hand on that made it take off. So thanks for what you've done, and congratulations on a great career.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. I remember those landmark dates when you were playing football here and when you went to Birmingham. And you just made a great point. I tried to make it with the city council not too long ago. If you looked at Memphis and Birmingham and Nashville in the mid-90s, at best we were in third place. They were the likely NFL contenders, and we were on the sideline. And the Oilers flipped that script. And you look at Nashville today, and then look at Memphis and Birmingham, and they're great cities, but they've never been able to jumpstart themselves like we did. And taking some risk and doing it right paid off.
But I know through my career, I can think back that where I can look back now, many years back, 40, nearly 50 years ago now with me, but where, man, it kicked in that this is what I need to be doing. I can really help with this or whatever within this profession. When did that kick in with you? As for when you started here, what's that one time where you said, man, this is made for me and I can make a difference here?
Good question. I hadn't really thought about that, but off the top of my head, when I came, everything revolved around Opryland. And more power to them for what they built for the city. But when they closed that theme park, and we had approved the Oilers, but we hadn't become the Titans yet. The panic that set in around tourism, and it just felt like, for me, it was our chance to prove as an organization we could make a difference. And if the city wanted to be in the hospitality industry, it was our turn to make sure that we got there, not at the expense of Opryland, but become a year-round destination that wasn't just Opryland. And, I wasn't sure, or if you asked me if I thought we could really do it, I don't know. But hindsight, we did that and a little bit more.
And George, I know you're gonna head him in a different direction here in just a second. Last thing with kind of your career, Butch, which one of the big things that you've discussed was the major step? Was it the Titans? Was that the one that really took the city and stepped it up? what would you say was the one that some of these other cities hadn't been able to do? And like I said, I've been in some of those cities. And what was the number one big step? Was it the Titans?
You know, it's easier for me to say it by decade because I think the culmination of everything really lit the fuse. But Titans first, you know, building a brand for the city second, the Music City Center third, so 90s, 2000s, 2010. All of those built on each other and reinforced it, and we've never looked back. We did all of it right, too, which is always the case. And collective we, not me, collective we.
Last thing, George, then we'll head back, I guess, toward the Titans in the stadium. But Butch, would you say the hardest thing you've had to do through all these times and nearly every one of these things we've talked about is getting the state, the city, everybody organized together? To me, that to me would be the hardest thing, and evidently you've done a great job of it. But has that been as hard as I think that it would be?
Might be harder.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, getting everybody on the same page. And, you know, I guess I would say I'm a bit of a dreamer. So I like to think of what's the hardest thing that nobody would ever think we could do. And let's try that. And you forget that other people are more cautious, more deliberate, much smarter than I am. And so getting them to kind of believe that the city can accomplish those things when there's nothing. Why
George?
risk it? Well, for me.
Yeah. George, you want to head him toward the stadium?
So, Butch, you've been front and center stage on the proposal to try to get a dome stadium here in Nashville. It has gone awfully quiet in the last 2 months. What's going on?
Well, about to heat up. With a little bit of luck, they will introduce the final term sheet to the council first week of March. And then that'll take 3 readings. So the month of March will be pretty heated. You should expect when they introduce it, first reading, just get it on the books. That'll happen. Second reading is the most important public hearing. That'll probably be a long day and night. And then hopefully that gets through second reading, and then third should be a formality. But not a done deal. We have a lot of work to do. I've said it on your show. It's the best deal for the city. Disappointing when people take their politics of either they don't like Ford, or they don't like the mayor, or they don't like the Titans, or they don't like me. But the way this thing is set up, it is a home run for Nashville and takes the city's general fund off the hook. Those two things never happen.
Butch, are we past the point, if I remember correctly, the council wanted, I guess, a second opinion on the feasibility of renovating the current Nissan Stadium, which I thought was a total waste of time. And, you know, you and I have been in the bowels of that stadium. We know. Are we past that?
Yeah, I don't know that it did what everybody wanted it to do. But yes, we're past that. There'll be a hard number. Titans are responsible for cost overrun. If you think about hotel tax worth $600 million, Titans and NFL worth $800 million. That's 1.4, and the state's putting in 500. So out of the 2.1 billion, we have 1.9 covered up front, not counting the self-tax, self-generated money. So it's other people's money and not general fund tax money, before somebody jumps on me about that. We can get this done, have a world-class facility, host world-class events, and not have to be the size of Atlanta or Phoenix or Miami. We get to do something pretty special. I'm locked and loaded. I am ready. I'm hopeful, but we will not count our chickens before they hatch.
Absolutely. Give me this, if you can. If March is when this thing sort of gets decided, when would construction start? When would this dome stadium be ready, best as you're being told?
Well, I think Burke will be out there with the shovel the next day, but I don't think that's your question.
That's okay, though. I like the answer.
It should be ready, I'd say now, by January of 27. So we've lost a little bit of time. I'd be a long shot if they can play the 26 season there. So I don't, well, to your point, from what I'm being told, it'll be a little bit longer.
Yeah. So we push back to 2027. What does this do as far as things like college football playoff? Does that push all that back to 27? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, we have WrestleMania in 27, so that would be the first thing to look at to see if we'd still be ready for April of 27.
Right.
That's reasonable. I think it does certainly pushes Super Bowl, because you don't just want a stadium done, you have to have some infrastructure and development going on around it. So look for that. But I think we really start to see the bigger benefit 2030 and beyond. A few things in between 27 and 30, but not the mothership.
Who actually, once this is all, if this becomes a done deal, and I want to reiterate, I think you're taking the right attitude that, look, until it's done, nobody needs to be celebrating. Who actually will make the bids for our city on these kind of events that a new dome stadium would allow to be a possibility?
We'll take a pretty big role. I've been talking to the mayor's office about that. And I asked them, I said, we can't have 2 and 3 people or 4 people chasing stuff. We have to figure it out in a meaningful manner. Sorry, if you hear my turn signal,
Oh, it was well done.
Trying to find a exit. But I assume, because it's not just sports, it's conventions, big events. So it needs a coordinated effort. We're still a small market. A lot of this stuff costs money. So also figuring out what's the priority, in what order do you want things, what can we afford, and making sure we do it right. Super Bowl is $80 million. College football playoff is in the $20 million. WrestleMania is a $10 to $12 million expense. So we can't spend $100 million in the first 3 years. We don't have it. But we'll build a group of people and we will figure it out.
Butch, does this at all get more difficult because we're going to have a new mayor now that Cooper has said he's not running for re-election? Does this make it any more difficult, in particular if a next mayor is not very sports oriented?
Yeah, it definitely runs the risk of, what are we doing? What's a priority? The good news is, even Mayor Cooper wasn't a sports fan and didn't really think tourism was a benefit City when he ran. He's still not a big sports fan, but he gets the benefit of those type of activities. And even go back to Bredesen, he was anything but a sports fan, but he understood the payoff. And, you know, you have to remind people, as long as we're a sales tax-based economy, we're going to need, or it's always going to be better to import sales tax as opposed to raising it on ourselves.
That's a really good point. Anything you want to leave us with before you make a right-hand turn wherever you're going?
You know, I think what I've said every time I've talked with you, to your listeners, and you and Watson, call, write, speak up if you are in favor of this. The opponents are still making noise. You know, their answer is, we want the money. Well, the money doesn't exist if we don't build this stadium. Hotel tax goes away. State money goes away. So we have an opportunity to build something to drive revenue, to pay for schools and police and roads. But you have to import that sales tax. And this should work, so speak up.
Good advice. Butch, have no idea where you are, but really appreciate the fact that you would take time on a drive to wherever, and congratulations on an unbelievable career.
Well, you are kind. You've always been supportive, and I appreciate both of you guys. And I just hope you'll call me when I'm done.
You know what?
Think about how candid I could be.
You know what? We absolutely will do that. And I want candid Butch Spyridon, so damn right we're going to.
That's a deal. I'll answer the phone.
Talk to you.
Hi, man. Thanks. Thanks, Watson.
See you, Butch. Congratulations.
Butch Spyridon from the Convention and Visitors Bureau joining us. So we've got a little bit to chew on after the break about what he put out there. We will do that, and then we'll have the Plaster Bet of the Day. By the way, I'm crowing because I am red hot. Watson doesn't know, but he will learn shortly, so stick around.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
So I think we learned some things at the tail end of the interview with Butch Spyridon. Watson, it has been very quiet, but it sounds like March not only is going to be NCAA tournament March Madness, but it's going to be Dome Stadium Madness.
Oh, yeah. I think March is going to get interesting, George. I don't see any way, the way Butch lays it out, I'd like to hear the other side, because I don't see how you don't do this. The money that's got to be spent to redo that stadium that is so far outdated and everything, there's not much you can do with it.
No.
And the things that could come in here with this new stadium, I just don't see how they don't vote it in. It's not sports or not sports. It's what's best for the city and how can we get our head above water. I'd love to hear the other side, because I can't imagine how they can counter what Butch went through with us.
You make a really good point, because a lot of the money appears to already be there, whether it's through Titans and NFL, whether it's the city. Butch ran through a bunch of those different possibilities. It appears on the surface to be about as good a deal as you can get. And let's face it, stadium costs are out the roof.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
we
sad.
as a city built Nissan for $292 million, and that included the cost of land acquisition, and $71 million of it was PSLs. Now, I have real doubts as to whether the Titans can generate the kind of PSL activity that they want to. I think there's a belief in the city that they are going to charge out the you-know-what on these PSLs. And for a lot of people who've been there 25 to 30 years, I think it's going to meet with real resistance. I think some of this is up to the Titans to be reasonable about the cost of those PSLs.
George, they're crazy if they don't. I'm telling you, the competition in this city is not what it was when they came to town. And they'd be nuts to do that. How many times have I seen universities overstep their bounds, charge the people that have been with them forever way more than they need to be charged to get exactly what they had before? It never works. Everybody gets upset about it. You lose more than you gain. And I hope the Titans don't fall into that, because a lot of the jobs I've been at, I've watched that take place, and it seems to never work.
I think that the Titans, it would behoove them to fairly soon after the stadium to release, here are the prices.
Great.
Because damn good and well, they already know those numbers.
Sure they do. And I hope they back off of them if they've got them up there too. I hope they listen to different people. But why wouldn't you release it? Maybe they're just waiting till, I don't know what they're waiting on, because something's going to be done to the stadium. One way or the other, it's either going to be a new place or they're going to redo this one. They can't leave it as is, and we know that. So I don't know why they wouldn't release it. Only thing that I could think is they release it immediately after this is all approved and we're going to have a new place. That's the only thing I could come up with.
One of the things that I wish had gotten asked to Goodell, because I would like to hear it come out of his mouth, there is skepticism on the concept of a 55 to 60,000 seat dome stadium hosting a Super Bowl. The Nashville people, Butch leading that charge, have said the NFL has told us that it's not a hindrance. And I'll admit there's a cynical side of me that doesn't totally believe that.
I kind of lean your way. That would be the smallest ever to host a Super Bowl. Am I right or wrong? I know my stadium at Rice was 80.
You're right.
It was high 70s or 80s at Rice Stadium when they hosted it. I just, that does scare me a little bit. But George, they do so much now to make their money that isn't just the head in the stadium. They make their money in so many different directions. I mean, it very well might be true.
The Metrodome. The old Metrodome had the lowest capacity, 61,000 or attendance. But of course, the COVID Super Bowl, 24,000.
You talking about Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've played in that one, coached in that one. And it is a little smaller.
Even still, that's
big. I thought it was bigger than 61, but I'm sure that's right. So
I think they upgraded it to 63 after several years. But yeah, that's the smallest. But that's
that's a good bit bigger than 55.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in the three readings that Butch put out there that will go on with the Metro Council, the second one is apparently the most important one because it involves the public, a lot of public meeting kind of things. Watson, I do think we're going to find out at that point what the opposition here, what's their big beef.
Yeah.
And see if it's legit or it's not legit, because the way Butch has put it out there, about 90% of the money that it would take to fund this new stadium apparently is already on board.
That's why I want to hear it. I want to hear what the beef is and compare them, because I don't see how I think that helps the new stadium to listen to the other side, because the other side I don't think can touch this. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. So anything else in that interview, either one of you?
No, just to say to Butch, thanks, man. I mean, you've been with him all the way through. I've been out and in. I can't name another person, George. You start listing the people from the quote 70s all up till now, of the people that were big in this city, and we can list a lot of people, but who would you put in front of him that has been in the middle of all of these things that have taken the city to where it is today? I don't know if there's one that I could put in front of him.
I would put Mayor Bredesen
He was the starter of it. Yeah.
Now, obviously, he wasn't a mayor for more than 30 years. You're not allowed to be. During his time, even though he wasn't a big sports fan, boy, what he did just in the name of sports was incredible.
Yeah, he did.
And so to me, he's a close second, but I would go Butch first.
Yeah.
Billy, you had something over there.
I thought what's crazy was how he mentioned he never imagined himself actually getting into sports and the sports side of things. You know, he was always a sports fan, but I mean, he's done as much for sports in Nashville as anybody. So I thought that was one of the cooler aspects. It's Nashville. You never know what you're going to be getting into. And with how it's changed, he sort of had to, you know.
I think, like a lot of athletes, if you tell Butch, look, you can't get this done, I think there is a fuel in him. There always has been, that there's a motor in him that never stops. And if you give him I don't think you can do this, look out.
Yeah, that can-do-it attitude.
Yeah.
He's a big part of that in Nashville.
So, Watson, are you ready for Plaster Bet of the Day?
Oh, I'm ready for you to brag on yourself. Go for it.
Yes,
Man,
you should be.
Big weekend for Plas. Bet of the Day time is brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers that you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000 or log on to bartdurham.com. Watson, I know you know what's been going on this past weekend with George. 4-0. What do you think?
Holy cow. I mean,
easy
honestly, for the first time, he's got a right to brag on himself. All the other times he does, I've never thought he's had a right. Just let him go. But this one is
Watson,
pretty good.
That's so ugly.
This one is pretty good right here now. You're on a run. It was 114 the last time I talked to you. So that means you haven't lost a time this whole weekend.
There's no rats today, George.
No, but I know, by the way, 51.5% at the moment, but who's counting? So, Watson, initially I was going to go with Kentucky. The lines came out before we went on the air Friday, and the more I looked, I felt like there were 4, and all of them were in the SEC. I thought Vandy was going to win outright. I'm surprised that Ole Miss took Mississippi State to overtime, but then they fell apart in overtime and State won by 8. And I just think Florida, what's left for them with Castleton gone?
Nah.
They were, high NIT with Castleton. Without him, there's just not much to Florida.
No. Good picks. Good
Fired
picks.
up.
Mississippi State. I mean, that's a tough one too to go down there and cover in, and they whooped Ole Miss. Not saying Ole Miss is very good, but that's a rivalry.
And Ole Miss played it like a rivalry until they got to overtime, and they just didn't have enough to take it any farther. So let's go to tonight.
Tonight you're going with TCU. I got to find this graphic, George. I almost pulled up TSU. I don't think you're riding with TSU tonight.
No, they're not playing.
Yeah, you're going back. Remember last time you didn't bet on TCU in the title, did you?
No.
Okay, I was about to say.
So,
big one.
TCU, first of all, when we get to Kansas, put them right in there with Tennessee and Kentucky. First of all, Kansas is not the third best team in the country. Who's kidding who? They're not. But the way teams keep falling this week, they're the number 3 ranked team in America, and they simply are not that. They are an inconsistent group. When they go on the road, they have gotten their hat handed to them. TCU will be fired up tonight. This is a big game in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. TCU on national TV wins the game outright. So there.
This is the trendy thing to do. Lose, get upset on the road. I mean, that's what every top 5, top 10 team has been doing recently.
Watson, I don't know if you heard this. It was while you were gone. Lee Fowler pulled a stat out of left field. You ready for this?
Yeah.
When a team is ranked in the top 25 this year, when that team goes on the road, what do you think the percentages are that they win?
Against the top 25 or whoever they're playing?
No, listen to where I'm going with this. When a team is in the top 25 in whatever given week you do it, when they go on the road,
to play
what is their percentage of winning?
40, 60?
51%, lowest since 1942.
Wow.
How about that?
51%. So they're losing 1 out of every 2 times they hit the road.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And then ranked in the top 25.
And that's what
I think
Kansas,
right there shows you, that stat alone right there shows you how balanced, equal this is this year. There's no telling who's going to win this thing. There's no telling.
Does this make you guys more excited for March?
Oh, yeah, it does me.
Yeah.
It does me because I think there are probably more teams that could win it all than there have been in I don't know how long. There's not a dominant number 1.
My prediction, George, is that somebody that hasn't played well within the year and about when you give up on them will win this thing.
They're going to get hot.
Somebody is going to get hot that had high hopes but didn't play well, like a Tennessee. I still say, watch out. They were to get healthy, and everybody is really down on them, and then boom, all of a sudden they start shooting the ball better. Look out, because they can dang sure play defense. But that's my prediction. Somebody that just really kind of fell off the radar that was well thought of will pop up and win this thing.
I think one of the more underrated storylines too is that bubble, how much shakeup you could have there. I mean, you've got a team like Vandy that isn't that far behind them. And if they win out here, they've got a legit shot. And that would be one of the better stories in the country.
I think they've got to be more realistic and say, if they can win 3 out of 4 of these final games and then get a couple in the tournament, they may have something to talk about.
It would be tough to leave them out.
At least a couple in the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least. I think semifinals at the worst.
Watson,
what they're going to have to do.
Tomorrow, Tony Basilio and then Taylor Barnett.
All right.
Be a good show.
Good day. That's a fun day always.
See you then.
See you tomorrow.
All of you behave until then. For Watson Brown and Billy Derrick, George Plaster. Good night, everybody.